Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thanks so much for joining me here today on another Cabral Concept. We're here on our Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday. We're going to be talking about the absolute worst way to do fasting, or the worst way for intermittent fasting. So one of the things that I get to see, which is really nice, is tens of thousands of people every single year inside of our practice and bringing all of their experiences with them. So I get to learn from a really diverse group of people. Some people are from Australia, some from Europe, South America, US, Canada, all over the world, literally all over the world. And what we see is a lot of the same similarities. And what we found is that many people begin a new nutrition plan, weight loss plan, exercise plan, whatever it might be, each year, kind of based on what seems interesting or what is new. And I want to let you know right now, it's one of the worst things that you can do. That's not the worst yet, but that's one of the worst things that you can do. And the reason is that we have a lot of people out there trying to make a name for themselves by promoting this fad diet or that fad-based plan, whatever it is. And the problem is they sometimes even have a medical degree. They've got a PhD or they've got an MD behind their name or whatever it might be. I'm telling you right now, if you are a practitioner in this health-based field, we need to do things the ethical way. It's fine to make a great living. It's fine to have an amazing career. It's fine to make a big name for yourself. All of those things are good, but it should never be done at the detriment of a patient, client, or customer. And that's what I've seen not just the past couple of years, right? This has been going on a long time, but we saw this over the past couple of years with extreme deprivation diets, extreme low-carb diets, extreme carnivore diets, extreme keto-based diets, and so many other plans. It doesn't even have to be that. It can be like the grapefruit plan. It can be the potato plan. It can be the banana plan, eating 30 bananas a day, which some people recommend. These things are not okay to recommend to other individuals. And even if it worked amazingly well for you, okay, I'm sure it may have in the short term. But you have to understand, when you look at nutritional biochemistry, you just know that this is going to go horribly wrong in the long run. And just remember, again, many of my colleagues are MDs and they're absolutely brilliant. And many of those MDs have now gone into the integrative health and functional fields. Okay. But they'll be the first ones to admit they didn't take any nutrition courses. Their medical degree has nothing to do with nutrition. It has nothing to do with nutritional supplements. It has nothing to do with vitamins. It has nothing to do with minerals. It has nothing to do with macronutrients or micronutrients. It has nothing to do with food. As a medical doctor, you are taught how to help people symptomatically with a disease name with a pharmaceutical drug. That's a general practitioner or even a specialist. And acute-based care in a hospital, well, that's surgically or whatever else they need. And I'm not saying that those are invaluable. Those are very valuable. We're very lucky to have some of the best people in the world trained in medicine to help us if we ever need it in the acute-based phase. But let's not try to translate a medical degree in any way, shape, or form to having some knowledge of exercise or nutrition. Now, your doctor may have a lot of knowledge about exercise and nutrition, but they didn't get that in medical school. That's for sure, right? So I just want to be careful that just because someone has a medical degree, that we don't confer on them some type of nutrition-based knowledge automatically. I know many personal trainers, acupuncturists, yoga instructors, regular everyday people who have amazing nutrition knowledge that I'd be far more likely to take their advice than I would a medical doctor. They've just read hundreds of books on the topic. A medical doctor, maybe one. Again, I'm not trying to come down on medical doctors, but I'm trying to come down on conventional medicine and somehow saying that that degree confers upon all of this knowledge. And why am I making such a big deal about this? Because there's been a lot of medical doctors that have been promoting keto for everyone, carnivore for everyone. You have to understand, if you are not a clinician that tests people's endocrine system, which is their hormones, you don't know how horribly wrong it goes for people in their later 30s, 40s, and beyond, and especially women. So if you've never tested estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, cortisol throughout the day, and thyroid, things are going to go horribly wrong. If you're only looking at blood sugar as your only parameter, okay, you might see insulin improve. You might see hemoglobin A1C go down. But what you don't see is TSH go from a 1.5 to a 3.5, meaning their thyroid is now functionally depressed. You might see their cortisol levels drop in the morning and now elevate at night, and that leads to poor sleep. You might see their progesterone levels, especially in women, dropping very low, and that leading to estrogen dominance. You might see DHEA levels plummeting, showing chronic stress in the body. So what I'm trying to share with you is that there are ways to get to your goals. Intermittent fasting should be part of everyone's program and protocol. It really should. There's less than 1% of people who have hypoglycemia or adrenal-based issues that need to make sure that they don't fast for at least 12 hours. But everyone else, 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, seems to be right within that spot. 12 to 16 hours seems to be phenomenal for people. I've given you many previous podcasts on intermittent fasting, how to choose the right one for you. I'll link that up today at stephencabral.com/2154. I have about 50 podcasts on intermittent fasting and really every facet around it. So here's the worst way to fast, though, because that is the topic of today's show. And the problem is this. So again, I'm going back because I'm not going to name any names. But there's been a couple of, we'll call them gurus out there. They may or may not have medical degrees behind their name, promoting certain diets. Now, the diets they've recommended, they made a pretty big name for themselves, which is great for them. I have no problem with that. There's no jealousy at all here. Because people right away will be like, oh, you're jealous. No, I'm not. That doesn't matter to me whatsoever. My job is as a teacher. I don't have a marketing diet plan to offer you. My goal is to share how I got well, how we've worked with over 250,000 people to help them get well too. Like, that's what it's about. And what I see is people sacrificing long-term health for short-term results. But more than that these couple of individuals who have recommended these extreme no-carb diets, high meat-based diets, are not actually now following that themselves. That's part of the issue. They now are eating carbohydrates. Why? They've realized after a couple of years how extremely detrimental it is to their health. And now they're actually saying things like carbohydrates are not the enemy, that if you gain weight by eating carbs is actually a metabolic issue. And I'm looking around saying, this is what we've been saying for the past 6 years in the podcast and the past 20 years in our practice, right? Why? We didn't invent this. I don't need any credit. If you understand metabolic health and you understand cell receptors and you understand hormones, then you understand what would go horribly wrong if you just stopped eating carbohydrates. But the problem is this. So these people are now eating carbohydrates again. They were reluctant to even tell people because now people are kind of saying like, oh, well, what's going on? But all the other people who are not necessarily listening to them on a day-to-day basis are now missing that these people have added carbohydrates back in their diet because of how it's making them more catabolic now, right? Nothing is a big deal in the first couple weeks or months. It starts to creep up, right? It overflows the rain barrel. And what happens? Well, that catabolism, that stress affects hormones, that it affects the immune system and so much more. So it's a huge problem. It is a huge problem following a fad-based diet. Use intermittent fasting, use it wisely, but choose a diet that is much more balanced. That means there are some carbohydrates. Even if all of the carbohydrates are vegetables, okay. right? And if vegetables cause you bloating, again, I can't go through that today. Please check out my previous podcast as to why that happens. It's not the vegetable's fault. It's not the plant toxin fault. It's none of those things, right? So you have to look beyond that, right? You need to peel away the onion. Anybody talking about plant onions, I'm telling you right now, doesn't understand gut health. They just don't. And it's not coming down on anybody. Everybody has the evolution of their study. I've been studying this maybe just a little bit longer, that's all. It doesn't mean that I'm better. It just means I've probably been studying it a little bit longer. That's it. And that I'm also obsessed with it, right? So I've been doing this now for 25 years. I've read thousands of books. I, like many other people in the beginning, thought, oh, I just can't eat fruit, because I can't have fructose because it causes bloating and fermenting and all that. Oh, I can't have, these certain herbs or vegetables because there's lectins and oxalates and all that. No, once you learn that it's a gut imbalance and you go about correcting that, then you realize, oh, this isn't necessarily like everybody was saying was. And actually, there's a lot of benefits to these so-called plant toxins as well, right? So again, I don't want to go too deep on that. But what we look at, and the overall theme of today's show is this, is that your nutrition is not meant to be manipulated. So if someone is teaching you an extreme fad diet, it's not going to work in the long term. Yes, you're going to lose weight most likely. If you deprive yourself of a macronutrient group, you'll probably lose weight, especially if that's fat or carbohydrates, right? So if you eat protein and vegetables, you'll lose weight. If you eat fat and pretty much nothing else, right? Maybe a little bit of protein, you're going to lose weight, right? Is that sustainable? I don't know. Maybe it is for you, but I'll tell you what, it's definitely not healthy in the long run. And if you believe it is, I have no problem with that either because I have no dog in the race. I don't own this diet. Run your labs. Actually look at your sex hormones, look at your cortisol levels, look at your thyroid. It's really important to look at those numbers. And then also look at your gut microbiome because how are you feeding the gut microbiome, the good bacteria in your gut, if you don't eat any carbohydrates? Again, it's just a question mark for people out there. Like, how does that happen? So we want to understand that the gut microbiome actually begins to shrink. And I've talked about that on previous shows as well. But beyond picking a balanced diet, you have to understand is food is not to be manipulated. So having a meal replacement shake all day long is not actual food. Yes, we recommend something called the daily nutritional support. But the word in and of itself is not even marketing. It's daily nutritional support. It supports your nutrition. It's vitamins and minerals, amino acids, electrolytes, detox cofactors, antioxidants, right? But what do you put in it? Whole food. You put in berries. You put in whatever you want to make a smoothie or a smoothie bowl, right? And then what are you doing? Well, you're eating then a whole food lunch and a whole food dinner. So there's a bunch of products. Again, I don't want to name names. They're just saying drink these shakes all day long, every day. Not as part of a functional medicine detox, not as part of some type of 1 week thing. No, it's forever. You do these shakes all day and you don't have to eat any food. And it's an absolute disaster on the human body because you can't get food just in a tablet. That's not how it works. If you're taking nutritional supplements, great. I am too. It doesn't replace my whole food. So what I don't want to do is get into this vision that we can manipulate our bodies through science. And if you're not watching this on video, I did that in air quotes. Science cannot replicate yet what we can get in whole food. There are studies now on fake meat made in a lab versus real meat. They're not equivalent. It shows that. You cannot make an apple, right? You can't make these things yet. So we need to eat the whole food, and yes, we can supplement as well. I'm okay with that. But what we need to do is look at food as food. Not that certain foods are dangerous or bad, right? If it's processed, it's a different story, but it's not really food then, right? Hydrogenated oil is not actually food. But if you ate the thing itself, it would not certainly be nearly as bad. So the last part I just want to share with you is this, is that it's also not a competition when we're doing intermittent fasting to see how long you can fast per day. This is a very Western-based mindset. So, and I had the same mindset. Don't get me wrong. Like I've been here as well. I'm not perfect by any means. When I was 22, 23 years old, I had gotten into yoga and then I started creating yoga for athletes. So back in the day. And again, I wasn't the only one. But I was like, oh, how far can I push this yoga? And I made yoga something that it shouldn't be. I was 22, 23 years old. I'm just like, I'm going to push this to the limit. That's not what it's meant to be. And intermittent fasting is not a competition either. There should be no ego in it. You do the right amount of intermittent fasting for you. But right now I see people following the OMAD diet, right? I have a whole podcast on the OMAD diet, the 1 meal a day. Well, the problem is, unless you're in your 20s, early 30s, unless you're a male, definitely not a female, it's going to cause a tremendous amount of stress in your body. Why? You are most likely not sitting around all day meditating. That's why. So you're going about a busy, stressful life with no fuel at all during the day, maybe just running on caffeine. Okay, let me share with you what your body's going to do. It is going to break down other areas of your body in order to create fuel to make sure that you keep going for the day. It's not a zero exchange game. Your body needs fuel in order to use your brain, in order to be able to move your muscles, have your nervous system work, digest, and because again, you're digesting even when food's not in your body. Remember, you have about 26 feet of digestive tract. So that's still doing its job. There's no something for nothing. So we have to understand is that a lot of these are not built on true scientific principles. And yes, there will be a lot of success stories in the short term. I'm not against that. We do many of these things. We don't do the 1 meal a day, but we do many things like lower carb, and it's for 21 days. And then we teach people how to strategically add them back in. So it's not like you can't do these things. I'm not saying to. No, I'm not recommending the synthetics and all of these other different types of things in terms of like, again, I can't name these products, but these meal replacement shakes that are not healthy, right? They're filled with estrogenic-based foods. I can't recommend them. But I'm okay still taking nutritional supplements. I'm okay with doing smoothies. I'm okay with making your life easier. I'm okay with doing some frozen berries and some frozen veggies to make your life easier. I'm okay with you heating up some frozen wild salmon, right? I'm not saying that those are bad shortcuts. What I'm saying is we need to look at, though, the overall picture. We need to find a balance in intermittent fasting. 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, that's going to be great for most people every single day, right? Don't fast through a lot of stress every single day. Just think about it. Go back to previous shows where I talked about how you're able to cut cortisol actually with food, right? That these types of things can be strategic. Who doesn't do well with 16 hours? Who doesn't do well with skipping breakfast? Maybe instead of skipping breakfast, you should actually look at skipping dinner and actually the huge amounts of benefits there, much more so than skipping breakfast. And again, I'll link up all these shows today at StephenCabral.com/2153. StephenCabral.com/2154. StephenCabral.com/2154. The last thing is this. I love this industry. I really do. I love the health industry. I love the fitness industry. I'm not picking on anyone individually. The only reason I bring these things up is because I deeply care about you. I deeply care about your family. I deeply care about people. I got into this to help people. And when I see people really manipulating food for unhealthy purposes and really having people look at food in an unhealthy way, I don't think that serves us, and I certainly don't think it serves our children and the next generation as well. So I just wanted to share that with you. If I can be of any help, you just let me know. Again, you can find additional details for my podcast, my free book, anything at StephenCabral.com. So thank you so much, and of course, please do feel free to share the show with anyone you believe it could serve. Thank you so much for tuning into the show, and believe it or not, it is already that time of the year. And just to make sure that you make this your absolute best year yet for overall wellness, body transformation, and anti-aging, I need to make sure that you are aware that once a year, this time of year, every year, we offer $500 off the Big Five. That means you are getting already a discount of $600 if you were to purchase all of the labs separately every single day at Equalife. So we take $600 off. Now, what we're going to do at this time of the year is offer another $500 off. This is the absolute best savings you will see anywhere for the Big Five labs to look at your food sensitivities, to look at your heavy metals, to look at your mitochondrial energy, to look at your gut health in terms of bacteria, yeast, to look at your omega-3 and inflammation levels, and so much more. It's going to show your vitamin levels, your mineral levels. I cannot recommend them enough. I really can't. I used to run them once a year. I now run the Big Five twice a year. I feel it to be that important. You want to make sure that you are not filling up that rain barrel. You want to make sure that you are not on the cusp of moving towards dis-ease. Your job is to make sure that your body is balanced at all times. The Big Five is going to show you the underlying root causes of so many health imbalances. I want to make sure that, again, like I said, this is your absolute best year ever for wellness, for body transformation, and for anti-aging. And the best way to do that is by saving over $1,000, an extra $500 right now this week while supplies last. We have just about 100 Big Fives that we are doing at this $500 off. And of course, each one of them come with a 90-minute health coaching consultation with our team to explain the results and also design a program built just for you. This is why we can't offer 1,000 of these, because we're actually giving 90-minute consultations with each one. There is no better deal out there right now, and there is absolutely nothing better in terms of personalized wellness than the Big Five. You can find it right now at StephenCabral.com/Big Five. That's just BIG and the number 5. StephenCabral.com/Big Five. I hope you take advantage of this. Have your best year yet.